Sometimes it feels like Browns fans are constantly praying for a miracle to save the Cleveland Browns. We want to fire every coach and GM because we hope that the Browns are going to hire someone that would magically give this team a culture that would magically make the team better. The players on the better team better. They're going to draft magically, all this stuff, right? We want to draft the quarterback because we hope that we luck into getting a quarterback who is so good they erase all the problems that the Browns have. We hope, and we hope, and we wish, and we dream, and that's exactly it. It's fantasy. It's not how any of that works. No individual person is going to save the Browns. The Browns have to save themselves. The good news is, if you're looking at this offseason, the Browns have the opportunity to make it easier to save themselves. But at the end of the day, that's what has to happen. You're not going to draft somebody who solves every problem. You're not going to hire somebody who solves every problem. You have to do the work. The Browns have to save themselves. This year's draft provides no deus ex machina solution at the quarterback position. Free agency right now is offering you Sam Darnold. Maybe you can find somebody in free agency, or you can find somebody in the draft that can be a middleman to help eventually get you to a franchise quarterback. But if you are looking for a savior at the quarterback position in this draft, in this free agency class, it's not there. The best you're going to get is a middleman. So what's the next option? Well, the next best option is to make it easier to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, right? If you're not going to get that magical solution, if you're not going to get that franchise quality quarterback in the draft, if you're not going to get that top tier prospect, and look, I just watched Caleb Williams and the Bears play. Caleb Williams is a top tier, can't miss prospect, right? Coming out of USC. And even with that dude, the Bears are struggling. I'm watching right now the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow, who's having an MVP caliber season, struggle to win a bunch of games at least. He's not struggling playing, but he's struggling to win games. Let me clarify that. But still, the point remains, right? Like, you're not going to find a savior at quarterback who's going to just fix everything, even if that dude's good. Even if that dude is an amazing prospect. You still got to save yourself. You can't just close your eyes, turn to a top-tier quarterback prospect, and say, hey, save us. That's not how it works. If the Browns want to be a serious franchise, if the Browns want to be what they look like they could become last year, then they have to save themselves from the mistakes that they've made at the quarterback position. They have to save themselves at quarterback. The number one way you do this is that you make it easier for somebody to play quarterback for the Browns and win games. You're able to do that, you're going to be able to do a lot more. You're going to be able to have stability in a building and find your franchise guy. So how do you make playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns easier? How do you make it easier for the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns to win games? And that's the key part, right? Not to throw for a bunch of yards, not to have a Pro Bowl season, but how do you make it easier for the dude playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns to win football games? I have 4 things in a specific order going from number 1 to 4, right? So the first thing I say is going to be the most important thing that I believe make it easier to win games at the quarterback position. Number 1, an elite defense. This is so overlooked. Whenever we talk about quarterback support, we never talk about the defense being a huge part in being able to win games with a mediocre quarterback. But it is probably, in my opinion, the largest thing that helps a mediocre quarterback win games. And there's tons of evidence that supports this take. Look at the most average QBs to have ever won a Super Bowl. They all have something in common. You're going to find an excellent defense behind them. The Ravens didn't have anything on offense other than like maybe some running backs. But you know what they had? The best defense God's ever built. Won them a Super Bowl in 2000, right? You go to Nick Foles. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles certainly had some players on that squad, right? Some really good players on the offense, but the strength of the Eagles was the defense. You look for any mediocre quarterback that has won a Super Bowl, you're going to find an amazing defense behind them. Because the defense can elevate a quarterback and make it so much easier for a quarterback to win. I mean, look at the quarterbacks right now who are having outlier years, right? Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold. Last year, look at what the Browns were able to do despite having multiple different quarterbacks play. They were able to get away with it, right? They won games with P.J. Walker. They won games with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Joe Flacco was throwing a bunch of interceptions. It didn't matter. Deshaun Watson playing slightly above average. Plus 63-point differential. Why? Because the Browns had an elite defense last year. Why is Russell working with the Steelers? Because the Steelers have a really good defense. Why is Sam Darnold playing so well for the Minnesota Vikings, able to win so many games? Because the Vikings have a really, really good defense. It's a huge part of what they're able to do. If you want to win with a quarterback who's not a franchise guy, you got to have a good defense, because history tells you that's how you win with a below average or average quarterback. Now, why does this happen, right? I can point out all the examples, but I do have to explain, why does this happen? Why does a elite defense make the life of a quarterback so much easier, right? Because it doesn't make sense. It's the complete opposite side of the ball. It's not anything that directly benefits the quarterback. Usually when you have a franchise quarterback and you spend all your resources on defense, people criticize you for that, right? Because you're making that quarterback's life harder. I think that conventional knowledge is wrong. And the reason I think it's wrong is because look what having a great defense offers a quarterback. I think it offers the most valuable resource a quarterback can have, which is margin for error. If you have an elite defense and you're a quarterback, you have a wide margin of error. You can get away with interceptions because you have a defense that can get an offense off the field after you throw those interceptions, and those interceptions don't turn into points. You just get away with it, right? You can get away with a long string of 3-and-outs because if no points are being scored on both sides, it doesn't really matter if you keep going 3-and-out. In a defense that can get turnovers, then also makes it easier for your offense to score. Think about it like this. Joe Burrow's having an amazing season with the Cincinnati Bengals. We talked about this, right? But the Bengals are one of the last teams that could make the playoffs. They are under 500 right now, even though Joe Burrow's having, statistically at least, an MVP caliber season. So why is the Bengals record so bad when Joe Burrow has played good like this before? The Bengals have been a team that's been a legit threat to make the Super Bowl. The answer is look at the defenses. When the Bengals have a really good defense, they're a Super Bowl contender. They're a conference championship game away from winning, from getting into the Super Bowl every year, right? That happened in 2021. That happened in 2022. They almost won the Super Bowl in 2021. Fast forward to 2024, you take away that elite defense, you replace it with a bad defense, and all of a sudden the Bengals ain't over 500. Nothing's changed. Jamar Chase is still really good. The offense for the Bengals is, quite frankly, better than it's ever been, but the defense not good. And that tanks the Bengals. That tanks them all the way from a team that's like 2 plays away from winning the Super Bowl to a team that's 3 games under 500 right now. The defense stuff, like if you want to throw for 1,000,000 yards, yeah, go get a wide receiver. That will certainly help your quarterback get 1,000,000 yards if that's your goal. But if you're trying to win games around a quarterback and make a quarterback's life easier to win games, the defense is the most important resource you can invest in. There's no joke about it. We undervalue defense so much, and we don't appreciate the value that having a great defense can bring to your offense. It really is the best resource possible for a quarterback. Now, again, you got to be a certain level of quarterback to benefit from an elite defense. If you are a trash quarterback or a bad quarterback, you're not going to benefit from having an elite defense because you're not going to be able to capitalize on the opportunities that defense provides. I'm talking about a mid quarterback, right? Like an average to slightly above average quarterback who can capitalize on getting layups from the defense. Like those are the guys who are going to be really successful. And if you have an elite quarterback, having a great defense around an elite quarterback has not been a bad idea. It's a really, really good idea. I mean, Pat Mahomes had an elite defense this last two-peat. That's why he's been able to two. The offense has been with Pat at times with the Kansas City Chiefs, even right now. But they got an elite defense, so don't really matter. They win a bunch of games. Everywhere it tells you, whenever you just look at it. Look at it. Name me a dynasty that had a bad defense. You can't. You can't. The defense is like, it's the most important thing to win games or with the quarterback. You can add all the wide receivers you want. You can add all the offensive linemen you want. But if you don't have a really good defense and you're trying to win with an average quarterback, it's not going to work out for you, or you're not going to go super far. The good news for the Cleveland Browns is this. You have opportunities to make this defense elite again in this offseason. You have the draft position to potentially get Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, or one of the best 3 or 4 players on the defensive side of the ball that this draft class has. So, I mean, imagine like adding Travis Hunter or Will Johnson to this secondary. So you have 2 shutdown corners. Or you can bookend Myles Garrett with Abdul Carter, who people are comparing to Micah Parsons. Or you can get an interior beast in Mason Graham, who looks to be one of the best defensive tackle prospects to enter the draft in quite some time. Imagine what kind of havoc that defense could do and the margin of error that will give whoever is playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in the long run. So that's the good news here, right? If you're looking for that first thing, an elite defense to build around the quarterback, you got an opportunity to do that. And you're not that far. The Browns defense is still really talented, has really good players. You're going to get JOK back, hopefully, from injury next year. And then you're going to be able to add some guys in the draft. Hopefully you can add an elite player in the draft with a good pick here, with the top 10 pick. And next thing you know, you're elite again on defense. We know Jim Schwartz can cook up an elite defense. He's done it literally multiple times in his career. It wouldn't be the first, second, or third time he's done it. So, yeah, get an elite defense. That's a quarterback's best friend. Second thing that will help you win games with the quarterback is having a good to great offensive line. Now, look, a great offensive line is amazing, but sometimes obtaining a great offensive line requires way too many resources, and then the return on the value starts to dip. But you just really need a good offensive line. And having a good offensive line is obvious how it makes it better for your offense, right? Wide receivers benefit from getting extra time to win routes. Quarterbacks benefit from having more time to process. Running backs benefit from the run game being more open. You can create a good run game. You can create a good passing game, all based off of that. And if you have a great to good offensive line and an elite defense, you got a stew going. But yeah, a good to great offensive line, big deal. Big deal. Definitely helps you win games with the quarterback. The good news for the Cleveland Browns is that there are going to be opportunities to improve this offensive line. Probably at the interior, right? Like tackle. I don't see a ton of solutions at tackle. I see some vets you can bring in to be some good stopgaps, but I don't see any big-time solutions at tackle, right? I don't see anybody who's going to change your fortunes at tackle in the draft or in free agency. What I do see is a lot of intriguing guard prospects in free agency and a lot of intriguing guard prospects in the draft. I see some intriguing center prospects in free agency and also on your roster. And I think that's a good enough area to start. I think if you fix the interior a little bit, maybe you get a couple of vets to have some insurance for DeJuan Jones and Jack Conklin at the tackle position, you can build an offensive line, depending on the style of play that you have at quarterback, that can be good. And that will be a good thing to add, right? Number 3 thing I think that makes it easier for a quarterback to win games is having a bell cow running back. Now, again, we hope Nick Chubb can come and return and be this again. But also, if there were ever a draft, to get a bell cow running back. If you're the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to say it again, you're in luck. This is the year to get a guy, right? Now, how does having a bell cow running back, help a quarterback win games? It's obvious to me. Having a running back who can create explosive plays, take time off the clock, make you in a better position to win time of possession, that takes so much pressure off the quarterback position. Also, it literally takes pressure off the quarterback position, right? Like when it comes to pass protection, but also when it comes to how teams are going to try to play you, right? If they're afraid of the getting ran on, it's going to be a lot easier to throw, right? So again, you combine these 3 things, and the Browns can reasonably address these 3 things at a pretty good level this offseason. You get an elite defense by just adding another guy to this defense that already has a bunch of guys on it that are really good. You upgrade your offensive line to get it to a more sturdy place. Then you get yourself a bell cow running back to add to Nick Chubb. And you could do that in the 3rd round. You could do that in day 3 of the draft. There are like 40 running back prospects. I'm like, yeah, I like them. Like, it doesn't have to be Ashton Genty. There are so many running backs in this draft class. Like, there's going to be like 5 Pro Bowl running backs that come out this draft class. So you can get that kind of guy there. And then the 4th thing, good tight end. Why does a good tight end help? Well, they add to the offensive line, right? So these are guys who can help you pass protect. These are also guys who can help you on first down, right? Nobody helps you get 5 yards on first down like a good, reliable tight end. Also, safety valves, right? Running backs are safety valves in the flat. Tight ends are safety valves over the middle of the field. So if you get lost, if you're a quarterback, it's no problem. You got a good tight end that can find soft spot in zone, get open versus man, you're always going to have a safety valve, right? 2 tight ends, twin tight end looks, always a nice safety valve to have with quarterbacks. So if you have 2 tight ends, the Browns already have 1 good tight end, right, who's a good 50-50 ball option in David Njoku. We found that out this year because they finally started throwing him 50-50 balls. But you have one guy who can get a 50-50 ball. You get another guy who get a 50-50 ball. You put your quarterback in a pretty good position to win. The good news for the Cleveland Browns, there's tight ends in this draft class. There's a lot of them. Right? You got 1st-round guys, you got 2nd-round guys, you got 3rd-round guys. You can address the tight end position and really get a lot out of this draft class this way. Yes, the Cleveland Browns have to save themselves. No, the Browns are not going to find a end-all, be-all savior at the quarterback position in this year's draft class. But what the Browns can do in this year's draft class, in this year's offseason, is build that nest, is make it easier to win games at the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns. Because right now, it's really hard, right? We got Jameis out there throwing 60 times. We're going to have DTR out there throwing 45 times probably versus the Bengals. It's really hard to win games right now if you're the Cleveland Browns quarterback. And when those quarterbacks are not extremely talented quarterbacks, that makes it even more difficult. But let's be fair here. Even when that guy's Joe Burrow, look at the Bengals record. You got to make your life easier for the quarterbacks on this roster. There are the quarterbacks that will be on this roster in the future. This is how you do it. You do these things, you will raise the floor of your quarterback room automatically just by having these things in play. An elite defense, a good offensive line, a good running back that you can rely on, or maybe even 2. And then 2 good tight ends, but having just a good tight end and then getting another one in this year's draft, All those things would build a situation where it's like, okay, yeah, if you get Sam Darnold, he can have a good year with the Cleveland Browns. Or, oh, if you draft Dylan Gabriel or somebody like that, a day 3 option, maybe they could surprise you and play really good in that kind of environment. Because that is an environment set up for a quarterback to not just thrive, but to win, right? I don't have wide receivers in here. That might be a controversial take. There probably would be 5 here. Because I just think, one, the Browns don't really need to address wide receiver that much in this offseason. So in the context of this video, doesn't make a ton of sense. But also, I truly do believe that these things are more important to winning games at the quarterback position than wide receiver. Yeah, wide receivers can help create explosives and take pressure off the quarterback. But also, like, I've seen good wide receivers get mid quarterbacks in more trouble than I've seen them be able to elevate the play of a mid quarterback, right? Because sometimes that quarterback just locks on to whatever that wide receiver is. Like, I think problems can be presented when you present a top tier wide receiver to a quarterback who's not necessarily good enough to handle that responsibility. If you ever watch Pokemon, basically what I'm describing is when Ash Ketchum had the Charizard, right? And he wasn't a powerful enough Pokemaster to handle the Charizard. That's what I'm talking about, right? When it comes to wide receivers. It's not that it's useless. You'll put up more yards, but if we're talking about winning games, I thoroughly believe having an elite defense is much better than having an elite wide receiving core. I think there's so much evidence that proves that. I thoroughly believe that having a better offensive line helps your wide receivers just get better. You can just get better out of what's there if you have a better offensive line. And if you have a bell cow running back and some good tight ends the teams have to focus on, it's going to make your life easier at wide receiver. You can get away with a lot of the position. Like, I think you start to lose the plot when you start spending $30-40 million for wide receivers, because you can get the same effect by investing less money in different positions to kind of get more out of what you have. But that's just my thoughts. The Browns have to save themselves. This is the way to do it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.